Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Life Show. I'm your host, Ian Hartitz. It is a great day to be great, especially because football is freaking back, people. If you're listening to us on Friday morning, first of all, thank you. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed Thursday night football. We are actively looking forward to watching the Eagles most likely blow out our beloved Cowboys. And by beloved, I just mean my Dwain, McFarland, Matthew Freedman. We got the whole gang in on the house, bunch of sad Cowboys fans. I was asking before the show, Dwain, like halftime, first quarter, when are we going to switch to Netflix doc here?
Yeah, I can't do it in the first quarter, but I could be feeling the need for some nostalgic vibes like very quickly. Freeman really has the best scenario here. I think he has a potential out that leaves him right of his Cowboy fandom, but he gives him the opportunity to come back in later. So Freeman, tell everybody what you're going to be doing in the first half of the game.
I'm going to be watching a high school football game because someone thought it was a great idea in the state of Texas to have a game like 10 minutes from AT&T Stadium on Thursday night during Thursday night football when the Cowboys season kicks off. So I will be watching that. And then when I get home, if the Cowboys aren't getting their faces punched in, I will watch some Thursday night football.
Guys, as if you needed any more reminder that Freeman is the biggest dynasty grinder in this entire industry we have, guys. Already getting some high school film out there. We respect your commitment to the business, Freeman. So again, very, very excited for Eagles Cowboys, but obviously 15 other games to get to. We are talking all things week one ranks on the show. And also, guys, answering a ton of your start sit questions at the end. So if you are joining us live, feel free to, again, shoot us a question at any point in time. We're going to keep them, rack them up, and then go ahead and answer them at the conclusion of the show, basically going 15 minutes longer than we usually do. So keep an eye out for that, and also keep an eye out for what's coming next. Time for the DraftKings opening lines. It's been a relatively quiet week one of injuries. Obviously, guys leaving preseason relatively healthy, so more good news than not. Freeman and I will be back tomorrow breaking down the key injuries of the week, so keep an eye out for that. However, guys, we did get some fairly big depth chart news, I would say, regarding the Chargers-Chiefs Friday night game in Brazil. Jim Harbaugh confirmed that Omari and Hampton will, in fact, be starting ahead of one-eyed Najee Harris on Friday night. Amazing joke from Cooter Doodle pointing out that, yeah, Najee probably did not see this one coming. Hardy har. Dwain, Omari, and Hampton, again, already had him ranked higher, already had him projected higher, but does getting the definitive notice that he is, in fact, starting ahead of Najee do anything for you in the ranks?
No, I mean, I think this is what we all expected, but I mean, yeah, we'll take it, I guess. I mean, it would really suck like if we got a surprise and Najee was the starter. That would be terrible. So at least it does confirm it. But yeah, I've got him at running back 16. I feel really good about Omari and Hampton. Chiefs defense is pretty good. Not necessarily a great team total, but like this is a guy we've been drafting all summer to potentially be a running back one this season. So I'm starting him off right in that middle range of running back twos.
Dwain's RB16, Freeman's RB19, also my RB19. Our consensus ranks have him just behind Kenneth Walker and James Cook, ahead of guys like Tony Pollard and Breece Hall, though. So tough matchup. Chiefs actually led the NFL in terms of fewest fantasy points per game allowed to opposing running backs last year. Really, again, under Spags, force you to try to throw the football, as we saw in the Super Bowl against the Eagles. Freeman, though, for Najee on the other side of things, I mean, this is a guy who was really left for dead during the preseason process. We did not know if he was going to be ready, and now he is, in fact, active for week one. So I know when Dwain and I were doing some of our streams, we were asking the question, like, what really is the difference between someone like Ramondre Stevenson and Najee Harris? And Freeman, as we stand here in week one, I don't know if there really is one.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think whatever we would have thought with Gus the Bus last year, Chargers offense, basically give that to Najee, except Najee's probably a little bit better. Maybe he gets a little bit more of a workload. But I think Najee Harris, it's a really wide range of outcomes. He could end up being something like a low end 1A to Omari and Hampton, or he could just be like a guy who almost never sees the field. Really wide range of outcomes, and we have no idea. That's why week one is going to be so important.
Again, I like calling these prototypes the flex with benefits of the world. To Freeman's point, we are going to see if Najee actually can become anything close to a reliable flex. I would not be putting him anywhere near flex, at least for this week. That said, even independent of that, we are still looking at a very good quality handcuff. I would be down to roster him, again, in more 12-plus team leagues or not. So, guys, plenty of rankings talk to get to. Let's go and get into those RBs. This has been our DraftKings opening lines. Football fans, the NFL season is here, and I've teamed up with DraftKings Sportsbook to get you in the game with an incredible offer. Right now, new customers who bet just $5 will get $300 instantly in bonus bets and $200 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. That's right, new customers that can bet $5, get $300 in bonus bets plus $200 off NFL Sunday Ticket. All you have to do is download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and sign up using my promo code FANTASYLIFE. The crown is yours. Stay locked in all season long and use your bonus bets on same-game parlays for a shot at even bigger payouts, or feel the momentum swing with live betting as every drive unfolds. And hey, if sports betting isn't live in your state yet, no worries. You can still play DraftKings Daily Fantasy for real cash prizes. So here's the play. Download DraftKings Sportsbook, sign up with promo code FANTASYLIFE, bet just $5, and you'll get $300 instantly in bonus bets and $200 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. That's promo code FANTASYLIFE only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Thanks to DraftKings Sportsbook for sponsoring this. Let's make this NFL season one to remember. All right, guys, we're going running backs, wide receivers, QBs, and tight ends in order of importance. Let's face it, in fantasy football land on this show. So on the screen right now, you can see our top 12 running backs ranked between myself, Dwain McFarland, and Matthew Freedman. You can find our full ranks over at fantasylife.com. But yeah, good to see Christian McCaffrey climbing all the way up there to RB2. Now, if we do go ahead and look back at the more of the back end, RB13 through 24, you will notice Amarian Hampton and Travion Henderson just a little bit lower than maybe we were expecting based on where we drafted them. Relax. It is just week one. So again, this was expected, but yeah, a good reminder. We are now playing in week one, not for the entire season. Also, shout out to guys like DeAndre Swift and Tyrone Tracy, particularly very, very excited about Tracy's potential smash spot against the Commanders. More on him in just a bit. But guys, I want to start things off with the guy who's actually cracking that top 12 for us, Mr. James Conner, someone that we were actually drafting more so as this low-end RB2. Well, now all of a sudden he's sitting pretty as a touchdown favorite in New Orleans. I mean, Dwain, if you drafted James Conner, like I can't even imagine putting him anywhere near the bench in this spot.
Yeah, no, he's a must start this weekend. You mentioned it. You're playing against the Saints. Pretty much anyone that plays the Saints this year, they're going to be big favorites. I'm thinking, Freedman, there might be a couple of teams that we could name where that wouldn't happen. But you mentioned it, 6.5 point favorites. And then we talk about the team total here. It's really big. If you look at the Xfinity best projections, which looks at the ceiling case for these players, 28 fantasy points, Ian, for James Conner. Like this could be one of those monster weekends. I could see multiple touchdowns. I've got him right there as a borderline running back one. I think you guys even have him a little bit higher than me, but I labeled him a smash play this week.
Dwain's RB14, Freeman's RB11, my RB10. Consensusly, he is ahead of Kyron Williams, Alvin Kamara, and Chuba Hubbard alike. Freeman, I think Dwain nailed it because I remember reading the only team that the Giants are actually favored. Yeah, the only team the Giants are favored over this season is the Saints in week 5. So I think Dwain's spot on. No one would be favored over the New Orleans Saints. The PFF actually ranked the Saints defensive line as the single worst group in the NFL entering the season. I mean, I just get worried, Freeman, because sometimes it seems like when you have such a perfect smash spot, the football gods say, no, it's not that easy. But for the life of me, man, I cannot figure out a scenario where James Conner is really going to bust here.
Yeah, the really great thing about this situation is that the Cardinals have shown the propensity really to give James Conner the full workload. Trey Benson will probably figure in more this year than he did last year, but James Conner, since he's gotten to Arizona, now across multiple coaching staffs, has really been a strong number one runner in terms of how they've used him. And the production has matched it, and he's got that pass catching capability too for a bigger back. So I don't think we're going to get into a type of game state where they need to throw the ball to James Conner. But if for some reason this game stays close, I still think that's good for James Conner because he can contribute in all phases of the game. And if it turns into a blowout, then as Dwain said, the possibility for multiple touchdowns.
Again, starting things off with the positive vibes, our risers, if you will. The running backs looking good for week 1. So, of course, James Conner. Also, Dwain, the man, J.K. Dobbins himself, potential Broncos starting RB1. Look, we both still do have R.J. Harvey ranked just a spot or two higher, but Dobbins comes in, has all 3 of ours RB28. And just, Dwain, in terms of the game environment, man, 8.5 point home favorite. Hey, if you have J.K. Dobbins, you need a flex, man. I am perfectly fine with rolling with him in this spot.
Well, I think, what folks have to understand, and Freedman and I are going to do a version of Talk Data to Me tomorrow. We're going to talk about projections versus rankings, but things we're really looking for running backs, Ian, a high team total and they're big favorites. That means there's a chance for a lot of touchdowns, and we could be running the ball a lot in the game. And those things, like you said, I think is great to point out, are true for both RJ Harvey and J.K. Dobbins. But Dobbins was the guy, to your point, that people got to draft later. I think we could have 2 top 24 running backs this weekend. Just a quick reminder, guys, Sean Payton is the guy looking at season long that has often given us 2 or more really productive running backs. Just real quick, Ian, I had to go all the way to find this on Facebook from Michael Fabiano. That's how deep I dug to find this information. 2 running back ones in 2017, 1 running back 1, 1 running back 2 in 2006 and 11, 2 running back 2s in 2008 and 13, and then a running back 1 and a running back 3 in 2009 and 2014. If you're not keeping up, that's a lot of running back 1s and running back 2s.
Looking at the matchup, Titans did allow the 10th most PPR points per game to opposing running backs last season. They do have 2 should-be run stuffers in the middle, Jeffrey Simmons, T'Vondre Sweat, but Freedman, again, even if the matchup on paper, just in terms of pure, yards per carry efficiency isn't the highest, it's a situation where, again, touchdown plus home favorite, really tough to be upset about that. So Freedman, would you tentatively give Dobbins the lead over running backs from teams like Pittsburgh, Jacksonville, Washington, and Houston?
Yeah, I think so. Just, thinking of the guys that you mentioned there, the teams that you mentioned there, Dobbins has a really high floor because of the environment that he's in. And one thing I will say, even though I do respect the Titans run stoppers in the middle, traveling to Denver in week 1 is real. Teams have struggled at elevation early in the year. So especially the big guys, that could really be tough for them. So it could be an even better running matchup for Dobbins and for Harvey than we might expect.
I am rolling with the Broncos in my survivor pool I'm doing this year, guys. Hopefully the Titans don't have another, first overall quarterback that throws for 4 touchdowns in a winning debut. That would not be great for the Hartitz household bank account. One more running back who finds himself in a fairly good spot, guys. I just want to shine some light on Austin Eckler, okay? It's a situation where, again, deeper leagues, you might have to be trying to find someone for the flex spot. So, Dwain, not a smash play. He's your RB38. He's my RB36. He's Freedman's RB34. But did want to actually point out some of the comments from Cliff Kingsbury, basically just saying that, there is going to be something to the hot hand approach at running back, and maybe didn't give the best ringing endorsement for Bill Krosky Merritt. Noted that, respect for his journey, no doubt. We'll see how it all goes, but it's a big hype train for old Bill. What are your thoughts on this dynamic in week 1, Dwain, between Eckler and, again, the training camp Hall of Famer himself, Bill Krosky Merritt?
Yeah, I mean, look, the matchup is definitely there. The ingredients we talked about earlier, 6-point favorites, 25.75 is the team total. Freedman's own game model, the Fantasy Life betting game model, actually likes him even more than that, Ian. We've got the Fantasy Life spread at 8 instead of 6. So if you guys are looking for an edge this weekend, Freedman, you can tell people that's still holding up. This thing's updating whenever you're updating it. So if you haven't hit the button lately, you have to tell everybody. So it does add up. I mean, we just don't know for sure how they're going to split everything up. So I kind of divvied it up across the 3 guys, and then I gave Debo a little bit as well. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know which one, but I will say this: Eckler has the ability to work across all 3 downs, and he could be out there in the passing game as well. So yeah, I just kind of found it hard to keep him too low in the ranks. So I got him right around that borderline running back 3 mark.
Love that you included Debo in there. You guys will not believe how high Dwain has Debo ranked this week. More on that here in just a little bit. Freedman, interesting to hear that you're, again, so much higher on, Washington than even the market. I actually went to Twitter yesterday and asked, out of the 4 kind of touchdown underdogs who people thought actually could shock the world and pull the week 1 upset, and the New York Football Giants came out on top. I will say, if you just look at, again, these bigger dogs, I would personally think that the Giants pass rush and kind of the Cowboys passing attack are the most elite units there. So you're pretty confident, Freeman, that the Commanders should still be able to make their way up and down the field?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Russell Wilson historically has been good as a dog, but division games can be really tough. And I just have so much respect for the Commanders' offense. They kept a lot of it intact. They added some pieces, and then Jaden Daniels moving into his second season could be even better than he was last year. So I very much like the Commanders in the spot. And Austin Eckler, a great pass catcher, and also, I mean, historically underappreciated on the goal line. Like, we're not all that far removed from a few years ago when Austin Eckler, by the way, Fantasy Life investor, led the league in rushing touchdowns. Like, there's a world in which he actually ends up getting more goal line work than people expect.
Great point there. We will see what Washington running back winds up being that lead dog on the goal line. One of the fastest questions I think Dwain and I are going to try to get to on our Sunday night game-by-game review. Dwain, you also did publish your own rankings column on fantasylife.com. We invite everyone to check that out this week. It is absolutely free. Were there any other Rodgers you want to touch on here, Dwain?
I mean, when we're looking at the running backs, again, like you guys know the things we're looking for. I did mention Krosky Merritt, but I look, you won't let me do this one on the show, Ian, because it is a big name. You guys took him in round 2 or 3 of your draft, but Chase Brown, absolutely like in a crush spot here, 5.5 point favorites. That's the 4th highest, a 26.5 point team total. So the Browns are that one other team I was thinking of, like that might actually be a close call, being favored against the Saints, but that's who the Bengals have this week. So Chase Brown is all the way up to running back 4 in the projection model. He's also running back 4 as far as the Xfinity ceiling goes.
Could be a smash play indeed. Maybe for into 100+ yards and a touchdown sort of parlays, Chase Brown could be your guy. Good vibes, okay? Not always good vibes, though. Time for some players that we have some questions about. Want to start off with Titans RB Tony Pollard. No Tajay Spears, no problem. Maybe not so when you're going into Mile High with the rookie quarterback as a touchdown plus underdog. Freedman, it is a situation where Pollard got fed without Tajay Spears last year, and we actually saw him get 18 plus touches, all 6 extended appearances without Spears. Saw him even reach 90% plus snap counts. I have no doubt about Pollard's usage, but I do have my doubts if the Titans are going to be scoring many, if any, points out there. Where are you falling with Tony Pollard this week, Freeman?
Yeah, Ian, it is for good reason that you are choosing the Broncos as your survivor pick. I'm choosing them as my survivor pick. I think everyone is choosing them as the survivor pick, and it has a lot to do with that Titans offense. Look, Cam Ward should be better than Will Levis. In the long run, very likely will be better. But it's week 1 in Denver against probably the best defense in the league. If not the best defense, top 3 defense for sure. And playing on the road in your first NFL start at elevation. This literally is one of the worst runouts that any rookie quarterback could have for his NFL debut. And I think that just trickles down to the entire offense. So I am out on Tony Pollard.
And I mean, we know Pat Surtain and everyone in that secondary are awesome, but Dwain, the Broncos still even allowed the 5th fewest rushing yards to opposing RBs last season. You have Pollard RB 23, Freeman has him RB 17, I have him RB 18. But man, when I start looking at guys like Breece Hall, Tyron Tracy, DeAndre Swift, just man, even if Pollard's to get a few extra touches, I'm leaning towards moving him down, Dwain, because this really is the worst spot we could ask for.
Yeah, it is. And I think Freeman really hit the nail on the head there. Like, it could be terrible for Cam Ward. And I like Cam Ward. I think like it's kind of funny how little respect Cam Ward gets. I get he's not like, oh, he's not Trevor Lawrence, guys. Oh, he's not some of the other guys that went first overall. We act like we always know which ones are going to be the greatest. But when you look at Pollard, I do think you can bank on the volume. Here's the other thing I'll say. When you look at the Denver defense and the way that they play, they're going to take away Calvin Ridley. Like, when Calvin Ridley's another name we could talk about, right? He moves down the ranks. But I will say Pollard does have the propensity to catch the ball out of the backfield, right? He was better at this early in his career, didn't do it as much last year. He did it some, but without Tajay Spears out there, I think in a PPR league, you're probably more than likely going to be fine. You're just not going to get the touchdown. This is the opposite of the scenario we talked about earlier. You already hit on it, Ian. 8.5 point dogs, right? So they could have to get away from running the ball really quickly. And even if they are running against Denver, it's tough. And only a 17-point team total. So you're telling me they're not going to score, and you're telling me they're going to trail. That means that the fantasy points are going to need to come through receptions, which could happen because they're going to be taking away the downfield passing game.
Again, still a low-end RB2, and if you guys are bringing in your start-sit questions right now, continue to please do so. Yeah, okay, we're going to have them ahead of the Steelers running backs and the Houston backs and all that, but if you do have a close flex call and you have one of these, stud-ish low-end wide receiver 2s, even high-end wide receiver 3s, I will be taking guys that we could feel at least a little bit good about over at Mr. Pollard. Dwain, this next one's tough, man. I felt bad almost including him, but I just wanted to kind of talk about just the difference between what we're expecting for the season versus maybe week 1. It is Patriots RB 1, 2, 3, depending on how you feel about the unofficial depth chart. Travion Henderson, not that the Raiders are this terrible matchup, but Dwain, I mean, he's both of our RB20s this week. That is a far cry from, I believe, our, top 15 preseason ranking. What are your week 1 expectations for Mr. Henderson?
Well, it's like you said, this was the expectation. We have to be a little bit tempered with our week one ranks. We do believe in Trevion Henderson over the course of the season, but I mean, it would be kind of silly of us just to come out and be like, oh, we're going to make him a top 12 back. We haven't seen anything yet. This will be another backfield we will be super excited to talk about on Sunday night after the games as we work through each team. When we look at Trevion, I mean, I think honestly, it's kind of a hat tip, like it's a hat nod, like of respect to Trevion that we've still got him at running back 20. And it's a good team total, 23.25. Freedman's got a little bit lower than that in the Fantasy Life betting model, and it should be a close game, right? They're 3-point favorites in this one over the Raiders. So I think that the matchup's fine. It's one of those things. It's week one, guys. Ramondre could get half the work. Ramondre could get 60% of the work. Trevion could get 60% of the work. But don't panic. I've had people reaching out. They're really sweating this, Ian. They're really sweating that he's the running back 3 on the depth chart. I thought your good buddy Chuck Bass really did a nice job of summing this up. And he's like, guys, let's not freak out. We talked about Kareem Hunt and Alvin Kamara also being the running back 3 on their depth charts in week one. They went on to finish as the running back 3 and 4 that season.
It is funny. Same day, I think we got the unofficial depth chart news. Dan Graziano with ESPN was kind of giving some bold takes around the league for each team. And his thought on the Patriots was actually that Henderson could take over the freaking backfield sooner rather than later. So Freeman still have high rest of season expectations. But hey, you have him ranked RB21. Not a given he's going to be in a lineup, particularly for people in 8 or 10 man leagues.
Yeah, I'm right there with you guys in terms of where we're ranking him. And you guys were the Bulls. Yeah, and I was, the Bear on Henderson. But week one, we're all seeing him pretty much the same. I mean, I think he has a good chance of taking over the backfield, just not in week one.
Moving on, guys. Someone who, again, probably drafted a lot earlier than this, but maybe not quite ready to play him in week one. That is Steelers RB 1, 2, 3. We don't know there either. Caleb Johnson. Dwain, we had a quote from Mike Tomlin the other day that, again, made my freaking ears go up because, yeah, I love me some Jalen Moore. And apparently Mike Tomlin does too. Per head coach Mike Tomlin, Jalen Moore's progress has been very evident, and he's to be congratulated. Certainly, he'll be our featured runner. Certainly, you'll see Caleb and Kenneth Gainwell, but at what time and at what degree will depend week to week. Are you buying Jalen Warren, Steelers RB1, Dwain?
Yeah, I think we have to for right now. I'm not going to jump on the hype train for any of it, though, because you know what? It's still Arthur Smith. This man's going to give carries to the third string tight end. We're going to have to get the backup quarterback out there and let him get some rushing attempts. So I'd rather take a little bit more of a wait and see approach, but I think you're going to be able to get Jalen Warren into your starting lineup this weekend, most likely. And you know that he can catch passes out of the backfield. I worry for Caleb Johnson early in the year, it could really be this very narrow path to victory for him, which is probably a leading game script where they're letting him close out a game. I don't know how involved he's going to be. Is he going to get every third or fourth series? So I've got him RB 40 this week. I'm taking more of a wait and see approach. I think there's still good things to like about Caleb Johnson over the course of the season, but no way, no how. And do I really want this guy anywhere near a starting lineup if I can avoid it in week one with Arthur Smith out there pulling the strings in?
Freeman, you're the lowest. You have Caleb Johnson, RB 42. I don't think, you're crazy at all for having it that way, particularly in a matchup that features a single lowest game total of the week.
Yeah. Also, the matchup going against a pretty good Jets defense. I know they weren't all that good last year, but there are other news. I think they're going to bounce back to being a pretty stout unit. And again, Arthur Smith, no running back in that system should be ranked too high or too low.
Dwain, if you have any more tough spots you wanted to highlight, feel free. Otherwise, go ahead and get us going with your sicko start of the week.
Yeah, 2 quick tough spots, Javonte Williams and Nick Chubb. These are low game totals. These are big dogs. So Javonte Williams, an 8.5 point dog, but they kind of fit that whole thing with Tony Pollard. We think Javonte is going to be the week one guy, but is he going to get the volume? Tony Pollard, I know is going to get the volume. Javonte might get the volume. If you look at Nick Chubb, kind of a similar thing. We've heard rumblings of, Dameon Pierce might be splitting those early down reps. We could see Woody Marks or Dario Agambawale. Most likely we will see one of those guys on pass down. So those would be 2 other ones just to think about. Volume has a chance to be there, but not great environments. And then you go to my sicko start, Ian, which is actually the same thing. So people are going to say, you hypocrite. How can you do this? Because I'm talking about Jerome Ford, okay? But the reason why is, here are my rules for Sicko Start. They need to be around rostered half the time on the platform I'm looking at for the week. This week I'm looking at Yahoo. Only in the starting lineup 4% of the time. So basically this is like a bailout card. If for some reason everything went wrong for you and you were just like, oh my God, I need somebody that might be available in my league. And if I'm a big enough idiot to listen to Dwain, like this will be one of the options. And so I would say it's Jerome Ford. Like, look, it's not a good game environment at all. 21-point team total for them. Like that's okay. That's not terrible, but they are 5.5 point underdogs. I will say this, Mary Kay Cabot did come out with a report earlier this week saying that it will be Jerome Ford in week 1, and then it will be Dylan Sampson, Ian, the guy that we like a little bit more as far as the talent profile goes, probably more as a change of pace guy in week 1. Okay. So having said that, I think Ford's going to get some touches. I've got him as a low end running back 3.
It's funny, in my notes, I literally had like, you hypocrite, how could you do this, Dwain? But no, I get it. Browns Bengals could certainly be the sort of environment we want to target in a situation like this. So I hear you. Freedman, time for a new segment with you. It is going to be either a wet or warm blanket. Wet blanket, bad. Warm blanket, good. Guess what? Ashton Jeanty, not your favorite player, apparently, Freedman.
Yeah, this will probably be like the worst take I ever. Oh, who am I kidding? This is not going to be the worst take ever. I'm going to have worse takes than this. But Ashton Jeanty playing against the Patriots, I think he's not going to have all that great of a game. Like, he's not in a good offense, and he's going against a defense that has gotten back defensive tackle Christian Barmore and then added so many other players, pretty good players in the front 7. And then the biggest addition, defensive head coach Mike Vrabel, who with the Titans in his final 3 years there had one of the best run defenses in the league. So I think they're going to really try to stop Ashton Jeanty because there's really, I don't want to say no one else in that offense. You got Brock Bowers, but it's basically Bowers and Jeanty. And Bowers is going to get his, but if no one else is doing anything besides Bowers, I think it's going to be tough for Jeanty to have a big game. By the way, they're on the road. They're dogs. They're playing in the early game as a West Coast team. There's just a lot of things going against the Raiders in this spot. And if he gets touches, I think they're going to be inefficient touches, and he might not get as many opportunities as we expect.
Freedman still has him RB13 for the record. He's basically just giving, the tiebreaker to guys like Kyron Williams, James Conner, Bucky Irving, Josh Jacobs, amongst others, which isn't ridiculous, but Dwain and I, top 8, Ashton Jeanty, wheat, no ball. Freedman, we'll see what happens. But good wet blanket call. I will give you that. Finally, guys, I'll give you my hardest heater of the week for running backs. I think Tyron Tracy out Washington racks up 100-plus total yards and a touchdown in an upset Giants win. I don't love hearing, 5 minutes ago that Freedman's model is actually predicting the Washington side to be the sharper of the two. But again, when trying to pick these underdogs in a wonky week 1 that we always know is going to be full of something weird happening, I do think that Giants pass rush could take over, make this one ugly, and accordingly help lead the way for Tyron Tracy to have himself a very, very good start. Could Cam Scotty be more involved than expected? Sure, but just given his injury throughout training camp, I do think it'll be Tracy more often than not in the early going. And man, you look at this Washington front, lost Dante Fowler, lost Jonathan Allen, putting a lot of stock in some true old people in Von Miller and Bobby Wagner, also ranked as PFF's 31st ranked defensive line going into this year and was one of the worst defenses last year in RB rush yards before contact. So Tyron Tracy, yeah, loving him this week. And loving me some Xfinity as well. So a quick word from them before we move on to some wide receivers. Guys, we're introducing the 5-year price guarantee from Xfinity. One internet price, 5 years guaranteed, because, hey, life is unpredictable, but the price of your internet should not be. You can get a reliable price for a reliable connection. And guess what? All in means all in. You can get Wi-Fi equipment and unlimited data included. Again, change is always happening. The RB1s of week 1 may finish outside the top 40 by the end of the season. Your first overall pick may put up an absolute dud out of the gate, causing you to tilt hard. But no matter what changes in 5 years, the price of your internet will stay the same. Learn more at Xfinity.com. Do note that restrictions apply. New residential customers only. Taxes and fees extra and subject to change. Week 1 rankings here on the Fantasy Life Show. Moving on to some wide receivers. We are consensus ranks up right now. You can find the full list at fantasylife.com. But yeah, the usual suspects really filling this out. Good to see Puka Nacua in the top 5 with a healthy Matt Stafford. I know Dwain has him as high as wide receiver 2 overall. Cannot disagree with that. Also, shout out Mike Evans, wide receiver 8. As much as the love has been going around for Emeka Ibuka, really tough to believe Evans is going to be going off during the Chris Godwin absence in his own right. So as we show you guys again, wide receiver 13. 13 through 24. Going to see some more familiar guys of Jackson Smith, the Jigbas, Devontae Adams, Terry McLaurin's of the world. But hey, shout out Jerry Jeudy popping up there at wide receiver 22 with that 11.1 Xfinity projected point total. It is a situation, I will say, guys, where we are seeing a big tier, and we honestly talked about this throughout a lot of the offseason, the wide receiver 2 to wide receiver 3. So Jeudy not necessarily someone who is worlds ahead of these other players, but really is a good spot. And accordingly, that is going to take us into our risers, our players who are looking good for week 1. Kicking things off with Jerry Jeudy. Let Joe Flacco cook, guys, against this Bengals defense that, let's face it, wasn't very good last year. Maybe new defensive coordinator Al Golden can fix things, but wasn't exactly the world's best showing in the preseason when they were apparently trying to start the season hot. So, Dwain, you actually have Jeudy, the wide receiver 31. Freeman and I are at wide receiver 21. Again, it is a situation where I think wide receiver 19 to wide receiver 35. It's not like there's this huge gap, but talk about why you're maybe a little bit lower on Jeudy than Freeman and I, Dwain.
I think it's just I'm still not sure Jerry Jeudy's ever going to be a consistent performer. It's like we do get spurts throughout his career where it's like a 3 or 4 game. We're like, oh my God, it's happening. Like this is the round 1 pick we thought we were getting from Alabama, and then it goes away again. And last year, a lot of it was really Jameis. You know, if you look back and think about Jameis Winston and the condition of the team, like we had the trade away of Amari Cooper, retired today. And then we also had the fact that we had Cedric Tillman end up getting hurt. And once Tillman was out of the picture and he was playing with Winston, yes, Jeudy went really bonkers. But we have also seen Jameis Winston supercharge players like Rashard Perryman. I mean, so this is something that typically we don't see from most quarterbacks, but Jameis Winston truly does have an effect. So my thought is the truth is that it's probably somewhere in the middle. I mean, Jerry Jeudy's underlying data points were decent enough last year, guys. So I'm not saying he played bad, but it's not like he looked like a wide receiver 2 to me. But I could see how you get inside the top 24. Honestly, like there's a tier of guys here where it's really close between a lot of them. And one of the names you saw on the screen before is like George Pickens playing against the Eagles. Like, I mean, I don't blame somebody if they want to go ahead and start Jerry Jeudy over George Pickens playing against the Eagles. Like, I think that's a close call that you could have to make. I'm just a little bit lower, and it's mostly about Judy's talent profile overall. Like it, don't love it.
Freeman, you've been high on Jerry Jeudy throughout this entire offseason. And man, with Joe Flacco under center, facing the Bengals, I mean, this should be the smash spot that you really are, hoping he gets.
Yeah, so you mentioned Flacco there. I mean, he, over his past 17 games, now that's going back like a number of seasons, but 4,800 yards passing, 31 touchdowns passing. Like, he's not Jameis, but like he kind of is a little Jameis-esque in his willingness just to air it out and let his wide receivers try to make plays downfield. And he's going against a Bengals defense that last year was bottom 5 in the pass. I think Jerry Jeudy is going to get lots of opportunities because they're really, outside of David Njoku, there's no one else there that I really trust to challenge him for targets.
We do have Jerry Jeudy ranked just ahead of Devonta Smith and Garrett Wilson in our consensus ranks. Also just ahead of one Emeka Egbuka. Not the case for Dwain, but honestly, man, again, it comes down to this being a really tough tier to rank, okay? Because with only Mike Evans as meaningful competition, maybe Cade Otton is going to wind up playing. Friendly reminder, Todd Bowles, we cannot listen to a word this dude says about injuries. But Dwain, again, with Emeka Egbuka, someone that you've been a little bit higher than me on throughout the offseason in terms of a pure talent. But here we are in week 1, man, and I look at the target projections. This dude's a top 20 wide receiver in terms of opportunities. So, man, you better have a really good team out there if you aren't finding a starting spot for Emeka Egbuka this week.
Yeah, he's going to need to be in most lineups. I've already gotten several questions, DMs on Twitter. One of them was Egbuka versus Pickens, and I told him, yeah, go with Egbuka, and I've got him 2 spots ahead of Pickens right now in the rankings. If you look at this game environment, really good, a 25-point team total. Fantasy Life betting models right there at 24.9. Should be a close game, 2.5-point favorites for the Bucs against Atlanta. And we look at the fact that there's no Chris Godwin. We've got Cade Otton, did practice in full, but like you said, Ian, I don't know how to trust this team whenever it comes to the injuries with Todd Bowles. So just a week ago, we thought, Cade Otton might not be playing on week 1, but now he's a full practice participant. But I just feel like it's going to be Mike Evans, and you mentioned him early. I think Mike Evans is an absolute dog this weekend. He's going to go off. But I think Emeka Egbuka is going to be right behind him. I think we're getting 2 top 24 wide receivers from this team this week.
Freeman, you also do have Egbuka as a top 24 wide receiver, just behind guys like Terry McLaurin, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, Marvin Harrison Jr. Basically, from what I can tell from your ranks, you're kind of treating Egbuka as one of the top wide receiver 2s right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And to echo Dwayne's point, I think there are going to be a lot of points in this game. It's indoor. You have two teams that really like to air it out, push the ball downfield. And man, if thinking from like a daily fantasy perspective, this would be a game that I'm stacking everybody, whether it's like offense from one side or the other. But Emeka Egbuka, I think he's going to go off going against a defense that last year was number 2 in largest fantasy boost allowed to wide receivers.
Again, if we are trying to find these teams where just offense that can put up some points and a defense that can allow a lot of them, Bengals the poster child. We're going to see the Cowboys doing the same thing most likely. The Falcons, though, are that sneaky third team that I think could be maybe like middle-class versions of that. Moving on to the third wide receiver, who again has a pretty good spot. At least one of us firmly believes that. Dwain, you have Debo Samuel ranked wide receiver 17 in this economy, no less. Freedman, you're wide receiver 42. I'm wide receiver 39. So again, guys, that is a big gap. I hear you in terms of projected points. It's not going to be that huge. For example, in terms of our fantasy point projections, Jerry Jeudy's at wide receiver 19 at 11.1. Wide receiver 34 is Zay Flowers at 10.1. So we only have one single fantasy point separating a 15-string tier of wide receivers. That said, Dwain, you want to go out on a limb and put your money on Debo Samuel? Why is that, my friend?
Yeah, man, look, you hit on some of it earlier, but I'm just going to say really quickly, in the Xfinity best projections, which is the ceiling projections in the projection model, Debo Samuel has the second highest ceiling of all wide receivers. And the reason why is because of what he can do also in the run game. So the way the model works, it looks at each of the data points we've got projected. It knows which data points have more variance than others. And so there's tighter bands around receptions, tighter bands around receiving yards, but rushing yards for running backs is a little bit wider, rushing touchdowns, those sort of things. So it helps out guys like Debo. It helps out guys that even get carries like Puka Nacua and CeeDee Lamb. So when I look at it, a lot of it is about what you said. I started looking at the median projections for these guys, and they were all like 1 point apart. And I'm like, dude, I'm just going to keep moving the guy with the biggest ceiling up this list because I want to make sure that people know to get him into the lineup this weekend. A lot of the other things that we talked about, it's got a big team total. Now, they are favorites, and Freedman, like I said earlier, likes them even more against the Giants. But Ian, you had mentioned the pass rush of the Giants. And they can really get after the quarterback. Well, if you think about a way to offset that, how did the 49ers used to take care of Micah Parsons before Jerry Jones traded him away? Man, they would run all of this misdirection stuff, screens to Debo, jet sweeps. I mean, you just have to keep those rabid linemen second guessing. And I think one of the best ways you can do that is Debo Samuel. And just really quickly, Cliff Kingsbury, man, the perfect fit for this guy. Wide receiver screen targets over the last 3 years in his offense, first, second, and third. RPO targets, 8th, 10th, and 4th last year in 2024. And that 2022 season, they didn't have anybody. And then rushing attempts in 2021 and 2022, they ranked 5th and 8th to their wide receivers. So just a perfect fit for Debo. He's healthy. I want to get this spot out of the way because we don't know if Debo's going to end up hurt. But this is a game where I really do love Debo. You mentioned it. Yes, all the way up there is a mid-range wide receiver too this week.
And Freeman, I'm not going to lie, man, like Dwayne's point about the pass rush, and even when I was trying to figure out why he had him ranked so high, it's a good point. I think we maybe need to adjust these ranks, Freeman. What say you?
Yeah, I've vacillated back and forth on Debo. I'm the lowest, I think, on the staff on him. A big part of that has to do with, as Dwain said, he's ranking him based on his ceiling. I'm ranking him a little bit based on his floor. And with this big of a spread, I think the wide receivers aren't going to have to do all that much for the Commanders still to run away with a big win. So I don't think we're going to see that big of a game from Debo, but like Dwayne's point is well taken. The ceiling with Debo is really high.
It could mean extra touches in the run game, though, with the lead. So, I mean,
yeah.
And the other thing we see in these games where they score all the points, we don't know where they're going to come from. It can all come in the first half, and then they just don't need to score in the second half, is one of the lessons I've kind of learned over the history. So, yeah, I do agree with Freedman, but I think Debo's floor is actually pretty good this week, just because of how involved he can be in two different capacities.
Blowout game script does infer that there will be a blowout occurring and thus fantasy points being scored in the first place. Just a little thing I learned in college back in the day there. Dwayne, any other, just Rodgers you want to talk about here at wide receiver?
Yeah, I mean, Xavier Worthy, we don't have Rashee Rice. I think that's enough said. We're playing with Patrick Mahomes. He played really good down the stretch last year, guys. 25% target share, averaged 19 fantasy points per game after taking over as a lead. And then I would just say Ricky Pearsall and Juwan Jennings. These two guys are coming out here. We know we've got George Kittle, but we've got Brandon Ayuk. out. We've also got Debo Samuel, who we just talked about, on a different team. So those are guys people just going to have to get their heads around. And then the one last one that I would say is Matthew Golden, 25-point team total. You could just call this the rookie segment, Ian. 2.5-point underdogs against the Lions. And this could be a massive shootout. I mean, so Matthew Golden, I've got at wide receiver 36. It will not surprise me at all, though, if this guy storms onto the scene with like a wide receiver 15 weekend against the Lions.
Speaking of a potential shootout, man, that Packers-Lions game, get your popcorn ready. Late afternoon, 4 p.m. slate, really going to be a good one. So again, plenty of guys you're feeling good about. Plenty we're not feeling so good about, though, guys. We do have some questions for a handful of receivers. I'm just going to breeze through Ridley. I think we already talked about the Titans, plenty guys. But yeah, guess what? We don't love the idea of Calvin Ridley seeing shadow coverage from Patrick Surtain this weekend. Per FTN Fantasy, we actually did see Surtain be used in shadow coverage 8 different times last year. He did not allow a wide receiver to reach 30 yards or score a touchdown. So firmly expect them to shadow Ridley. Still feeling great about Ridley overall. Maybe he does manage to find a way to win on what's probably still going to be an 8 to 10 target workload. But yeah, Dwain and Myers wide receiver 2, Freedman's wide receiver 31. Dwain, Marvin Harrison Jr. at the Saints. This is an interesting one because I saw your early week rank. I'm not going to hold you to it because we all adjust the ranks as they go. But man, this dude was like as a mid-tier wide receiver 3 for you. You got him up to wide receiver 24. I'm actually lower at wide receiver 27. Freedman's the highest at wide receiver 20. But what is still giving you pause here, Dwain? Because again, matchup reasonable enough in New Orleans, or is it just more so the Kyler factor than anything?
Yeah, so again, you guys are going to have to listen to Talk Data to me tomorrow with me and Freedman because like the process that I go through, my starting point is the projections and I make some slight tweaks, right? And then I start to like really think through the scenarios and things to get to my later week rankings. And so, yeah, Marv projects for 9.8 as his median, which is not great. Like there's a lot of names that I actually now have him over that are projected for a higher median. But man, I just kept staring at the Vegas team total. So I've got him as a borderline wide receiver 2. I don't mind if someone wants to bench him, especially if you're playing in a 2 wide receiver sort of league and maybe you only have one flex position. Totally get that. But I've got him right there at that borderline wide receiver 2. Wide receiver 24 for me now, Ian. And a lot of it does just come down to, man, it looks like the Cardinals are going to score a lot of points. I know we talked about James Conner. We all are predicting a lot of that's going to go to James Conner, but what you just said, Ian, what you learned in college, what you wrote your thesis on is, hey, a lot of points being scored means everybody has a chance to score those points, and it could be 2 touchdown passes to Marvin Harrison Jr. Like that's also in the range of outcomes. So I've got him right there as, like I said, wide receiver 24.
And again, it might sound weird to be like, oh, he was a wide receiver 3 to start. Guys, Marv finished as a wide receiver 40 in PPR points per game last year. That happened. That said, Freedman, players are legally allowed in the year 2025 to get better in their second and third seasons and beyond. You have Marv as a wide receiver 20 this week. Explain yourself, Oracle.
Yeah, it's really just about the massive points that I think the Cardinals are going to score. You mentioned Harrison potentially taking a second-year leap, and there are really no wide receivers that he has to compete with for targets. So I think he should have a healthy target share there going against a defense that I have absolutely no respect for in the Saints. So just expecting points from that offense, and I believe that will trickle down to Marvin Harrison as the number 1 wide receiver.
One more wide receiver we want to talk about, particularly having some tough questions about, is going to be Jets wide receiver 1, 2, 3 is pretty much the entire passing game. Garrett Wilson going up against a revamped Pittsburgh Steelers secondary. They did add Darius Slay and Jalen Ramsey to complement Joey Porter Jr. throughout this offseason. So, Dwayne, you've been lower on Garrett Wilson, much to the chagrin of our, Fantasy Life CEO, Elliot Chris, throughout this offseason, and you are really doubling down with a wide receiver 33 rank for Garrett ahead of week 1. Why so low, Dwayne? Just, again, a very tough matchup. And let's face it, the whole Justin Fields stolen football thing.
Yeah, and look, I mean, like you said, this is kind of me just, it looks like I called it a faller, but technically this is me holding the ground of where I had this, basically Garrett Wilson had him a little higher ranked than this. But when you look at it, we're talking about the Steelers. We're talking about the second lowest team total on the slate at 17.75 points. And then you look at just the vibes overall, man. Like, can the Jets catch a break? Now they lose one of their best starting linemen. It's just like you can't get anything to go well. You look at Justin Fields in the games where he wasn't rotating in as a rusher or filling in the second half of a game, or he got hurt and knocked out. So games where he played 90% of the snaps, he's averaged 180 passing yards. His catchable target rate is not good. Yes, you can get an outlier season, guys. Read my lips. Garrett Wilson's still a baller. I still believe in Garrett Wilson as a player. He's going to by far lead this team in targets. I just worry about the overall value of each one of those targets, especially it's against a team like the Steelers. And I think, the bookmakers are obviously saying that as well when you look at this team total. So I could see him coming up with 5 or 6 catches for 60 yards. And I think, honestly, that's what you're hoping for. Is he very likely to score a touchdown this weekend? I don't think so.
Freedman, you and Dwain have Garrett projected for 7.9 targets. And it's a good reminder why I'm not in charge of projections, because I would have this at 13 ahead of this spot. Okay. So yes, it is a tougher matchup, Freedman. So you're wide receiver 26. I'm wide receiver 24. I think we're accepting that, but basically we're still just giving at least some sort of respect to this target total and ranking Garrett ahead of the Travis Hunter, Jalen Waddles of the world, who, yes, are good in their own right, but also, let's face it, the number 2s in their own offense.
Yeah, I think Dwayne's right. I want to knock him down a little bit in the rankings. I've been down on him all summer, and I think that starts now. The one thing I will say in his favor is that the Steelers, I think their defense is good, but they've had a lot of movement in their secondary. So if there is some opportunity, outside of there's this massive leap that Justin Fields takes that no one anticipated, outside of anything like that, it's just week 1, he's going against a defense that has a lot of new pieces in the back end, and he's able to exploit that. But I don't have a lot of hope for Garrett Wilson this week or this season.
Dwain, are there any other downgrades you want to talk about while I get that knife out of my back that Freedman just stabbed me with?
I don't know if you can handle any more. I'm worried. I don't want to talk about, another player that might have been a former Buckeye. No, I'm good. I think we're good. Garrett Wilson, that's kind of the nail in the coffin there. I will say I stopped where you said, Ian. I got to the name Travis Hunter and Matthew Golden, who are not proven, but they both have way better game totals. I'll be honest. I thought about, maybe I should drop him below those, but I'm like, no, I'm going to give him respect because I like him as a player. And so I've still got him above those names in the ranks.
We'll see if that can hold up until week 2. I am not very confident. Takes us to Dwayne's sicko start. Interesting one, Dwain. Why don't you go ahead and tell the people who you all of a sudden feel great about in week 1?
Yeah, when I wrote this, I even put in here, Ian is never going to let me live this down. So you guys can go check out the article on fantasylife.com for free. So look, here's the deal. Sicko call means the rules I gave earlier. Bateman's rostered in 46% of Yahoo leagues. So at least half the time he's available for you guys. He's only in 4% of the starting lineups. He did get the contract from the Ravens. I don't really care about that, but I had to say it because Ian's going to mention it if I don't, because he always does. But this is the thesis on a guy like Bateman, right? We've never really seen him be a true target earner, but we have seen him show the ability to spike in the touchdown department. And we've got a game where the Ravens are 1.5-point dogs against the Bills, a 24.5-point team total. That's pretty good. So this could just be a massive shootout. And that's what would get me in on Bateman. And if I'm playing in a larger league where I need a flex spot, you're starting 3 wide receivers and 2 flexes already, guys, don't get this twisted. I still have Bateman as a borderline wide receiver 4. So this is more of a call for those deep kind of leagues, you sickos that are out there. But if I'm starting Bateman this season, this is the kind of game. This is the kind of game where I want to get him into the lineup.
Bill's secondary is all kinds of banged up. Christian Benford managed to get back to a full practice on Thursday, so he's seemingly on track to play. But Tre'Davious White, back-to-back DMPs, also already lost Maxwell Hairston earlier this month. Freeman, not a wet blanket here, a warm blanket. Who are we feeling good about, man?
Yeah, shout out Swing, our producer, a Bears fan. I'm going with DJ Moore. I think is going to tear up the Vikings secondary this week. I know he didn't have a good year last year, but he was dealing with a rookie quarterback in a suboptimal offense. We're giving a pass to Caleb Williams for a lot of what happened last year. I think we should do the same with DJ Moore. He's only 28 years old. The year before last, he had 1,300 yards from scrimmage. Looked like one of the best wide receivers in the league. We have Caleb Williams entering his second season. And then, of course, offensive play calling head coach Ben Johnson coming in. It should be just a better offensive environment. DJ Moore is a really good wide receiver. And then now going against a Vikings defense that last year was number 1 in most fantasy points allowed to wide receivers. I think based on where he historically lines up and based on where cornerback Jeff Okudah historically lines up, Moore is going to be running most of his routes against Okudah, who is just a train wreck of a cover man. 10 yards per target is what Okudah has allowed over his career. Moore could just destroy him. I'm thinking the upside of 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. That is within the range of outcomes. I think a big bounce back for DJ Moore this year. And I think that starts in week 1.
He does have a pair of 100-yard performances against Brian Flores' Vikings defenses since he did join up with the Bears. And similar to kind of Dwain's argument about Debo Samuel and what's the easiest way to defeat a good pass rush or a blitz-heavy defense, it is getting the ball out quickly. And I could see the Bears trying to do that against Flores, a.k.a. feeding DJ Moore the ball. And also, like Debo, we've been getting a lot of RB comps and just kind of usage from DJ Moore out of Bears camp. So a lot going on there. I do like that call, Freedman. Not as much as I like my Hartitz heater for the wide receivers, guys. Troy Franklin. That's right. Troy Franklin. That's how deep we're going down here, is catching a 50-yard touchdown on his way to a top 20 PPR finish. Similar to Dwain, we are, dumpster diving here, wide receiver 5+. Please, for the love of God, don't be asking me if you should start Troy Franklin ahead of Jalen Waddle or Travis Hunter or guys like that. But I do think there's a reason to be optimistic here, particularly in the DFS streets or your deep 14, maybe even 32 team leagues like myself. So number one Titans cornerback L'Jarius Sneed is dealing with a knee injury, could be at less than 100%. And just as much as Courtland Sutton is their number one, guys, we've seen full-time starting uses from Troy Franklin throughout the preseason with the starters. And man, even when he was a backup part-time player last year, he had 12 targets, throwing at least 30 yards downfield. Sutton only had 9. So again, when you think of Sean Payton's just well-designed deep shots, you getting, half rollout for Bo Nix before he steps up in the pocket, a lot of those are going to Troy Franklin. I think they pick up where they left off in the wild card game last year, and they finally start to show some of that Oregon chemistry after what was a pretty rough start to 2024. New year, new Troy Franklin, mark it down or not, because, it's a good chance this one goes wrong. Enough of that, though, guys. Let's talk about some quarterback ranks. Fantasy Live consensus top 12 on the board. Of course, we got our dual threat aliens at the top. Joe Burrow and Bo Nix filling out the top 6. Baker Mayfield, Patrick Mahomes, Kyler Murray. Oh my gosh, Trevor Lawrence filling out the top 10. Brock Purdy and Drake May right there. But guys, how could we not talk about T-Law coming in as QB 10 first and foremost? Dwain, actually, you're the one pulling that up a little bit. He is your QB 9. Freedman's QB 11. I have also moved up T-Law and accepted just what really is a nice spot for him against Carolina. He is my QB 10. So Jaguars offense, man, implied to score 25.25 points. That is the 6th most in week 1. If there's ever a time to trust T-Law and this Liam Cohen offense, this is it.
Yeah, you just said it. I mean, we've got a big team total here. We've got the unveil of the new offense. Now that could go wrong. But the thing I like about Trevor Lawrence is he really does give you outs on the ground as well as through the air. And when you put those things together, that gives you an opportunity to really have a smash sort of game. We've seen him be a player also using the side at the 5-yard line. There's lots of different ways Trevor Lawrence can score these points, but we've got a great matchup here. Now, I don't typically overweight like what a team did at the end of last year or what they did last year coming into the new season. So we have to be careful with this sort of stuff. But the Panthers did give up the 4th highest fantasy boost last year to quarterback. So essentially what that's doing, it's giving you the adjusted fantasy points they gave over, right, the average of the quarterbacks they played. It was it was worth 4.4 extra points per game when you played against a team named the Panthers. That's really good, Ian. I mean, if we project you at 17 and now suddenly that's going to put you at 21, 22, that's really a big difference. So when you look at it and the ceiling, the Xfinity best projection is 29.9 for Trevor Lawrence. That's the 6th highest on the site. So he was another player that was really close with several others in the median. But then when you looked at how much higher his ceiling was over some of those other players, I just kept moving him up in the ranks. So yeah, he's my QB 9 for week 1.
Really has been cool seeing the fantasy boost, some of the ceiling projection stuff in our Fantasy Life tools. Dwain really has been in the lab all off season long. Make sure you guys check those out at fantasylife.com. Freeman, Dwain said it, man. Great spot. Got a guy that can run here. Are you confidently starting Trevor Lawrence ahead of guys like Jared Goff, Brock Purdy, Justin Fields, and Caleb Williams?
Yeah, I mean, to echo what Dwain said, great matchup. The Panthers last year were number 32 in defensive drop back success rate. They still have the same defensive coordinator, still have pretty much the same defense back there. So I don't really see why that should change. And then upgrades around the board for Trevor Lawrence, both with the new offensive head coach and Liam Cohen, and then the 1st round wide receiver and Travis Hunter. Great situation for Trevor Lawrence this week.
Another quarterback kind of in that QB1 borderline mess where you're wondering if you should start him. Drake May, QB12 for Dwain and Freedman, QB13 for me, facing off against Pete Carroll's Las Vegas Raiders. So last year, Dwain, Drake May, and Patrick Mahomes both had 5 top 12 fantasy finishes. God forbid this offensive environment and play calling is just a little bit better. Drake May really could be the late round quarterback of 2025.
Yeah, it's so funny because some really well-respected fantasy analysts, like everybody has the right to their own opinion, but yesterday I put out this tweet about May. He's like, "Why are you trying to FOMO everybody?" And I'm like, I'm not. I'm just telling you. And it's 9 games where this dude actually played the whole game, played 90% of the snaps. He averaged 18.6 fantasy points. And you just talked about the 5 finishes that he had only in those 9 games. So I just don't see how we can dismiss this. He also is the archetype of player that we're looking for. If you look at him, he had an 11% scramble rate, Ian, last year. The only guy ahead of him was Jaden Daniels. So he's running the ball. He's doing it whenever it's most efficient for him to do so. He can still get out of bounds. And now we're hearing they might use him more on design rush plays. That could mean a touchdown down inside the 5-yard line. So I just look at it. I put it all together. Number one, he played well when given his opportunity last year. Number two, he's got this ability with his legs that we know really gives him, and actually it helps his floor and it helps his ceiling. So it's hard for me to not have Drake May inside the top 12. So I just went ahead and did it. Put him inside the top 12 week 1.
Freedman, I think it's a pretty consensus top 5. Again, dual threat aliens, then Joe Burrow. After that, it starts to become a little bit more of a tier. If there was going to be kind of this consensus QB6, or maybe give Mahomes credit, QB7 will say emerge. Drake May, just with everything he can do on the ground that Dwain just mentioned, man, he could be a pretty good dark horse pick.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I will say there's a tier. Like, there are a lot of other guys here. Like, Bo Nix has the rushing ability, but man, Drake May, given that he's entering his 2nd season, and to echo Dwayne's point, like, he could get goal line work. That's really exciting to think about because he's got the size for it. It's not as if like he's Lamar Jackson or Kyler Murray or like a guy who isn't really built to get the goal line work. Like, he's built for it, and he's even talked about it a little bit. So yeah, there's massive upside with Drake May, and I really do like the matchup he has going against the Raiders defense that is very suspect.
And Dwayne, I know in your, again, column that is free at fantasylife.com, the other quarterback you wanted to highlight was Jordan Love, which I love because guess what? He's healthy.
Yeah, he's healthy. Number 1. Number 2, 6th best team total on the week. We talked about Matthew Golden and passing earlier. So this really just goes hand in hand with that. And Ian, you've done a good job all season of reminding folks how good Jordan Love was the year before last. Last year, he was dealing with a lot of injuries. Not a guy that's going to run around as much as these others, but when he does, he's actually been a very efficient player in that nature. And look, man, the Packers offense looks great. Like, this is an offense that's going to score a lot of points. Now, last year, a lot of them came on the ground. Guys, you know what's not super sticky year over year? How the teams always score their touchdowns, especially if they're a balanced offense that actually has talent in both departments. We could easily see a lot of the touchdowns from inside the 10-yard line or in the red zone swing more back to the passing game like we saw in 2023. So I think there's a lot of things working for Jordan Love here. When you look at him, like if you think about where he was going in drafts this summer, Ian, like QB 20, QB 22. So I've got him as a borderline QB 1 this weekend in this matchup.
Feeling good about those guys. Not so good about the next quarterbacks we're going to discuss, though. Starting off with the guy throwing Garrett Wilson the ball, Justin Fields, in a revenge game here in week 1 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Dwayne, he's your QB 19 on the week. Freedman's QB 10. I'm split in the middle there as my QB 14. So I will say Jets losing their starting right guard, Elijah Vera Tucker, for the season with another triceps injury is very unfortunate. Also doesn't help that despite sharing a division with Lamar Jackson, the Steelers gave up the 4th fewest rushing yards to opposing quarterbacks last season. So, Freeman, I'm going to let you go first here because you are a bit of a bull in this situation. QB 10 for Justin Fields. Okay, there is hope.
I mean, it's a terrible situation. Like, I'll just say that. But he's a great runner. He's an elite runner. He has a hashtag revenge game, and he is going against, I talked about this earlier with Garrett Wilson, he is going against a secondary that has quite a few new pieces. So if there is a week where the Steelers defense might not be as good, I think it would be week 1. So Justin Fields, because of the running ability, and then because of the issues in the secondary for the Steelers, yeah, I will say I have him as like a low end QB1.
Dwayne, doesn't seem like you're properly weighting the revenge game factor here.
No, I know Freedman talks a lot about the revenge game factor. And look, Freedman studies this stuff. He works on it all the time. Like, a major hat tip to him with the game model and everything. Like, so he knows more than me on some of those fronts. So you guys can listen to him. I'm not starting Justin Fields. I don't want him anywhere in my fantasy starting lineup if I can help it this weekend. Like, I would much rather start Lawrence, May, Love, and Lawrence is available in a ton of leagues. So I just don't think there's a reason to have to force it. What Freeman said is absolutely true, though. he still has a major out. He could completely stink as a passer, guys, and he could still bail you out with like 18 fantasy points just by doing some work on the ground. If he scores one rushing touchdown, like he's for sure going to get to that. If he surprises, to Freedman's point, and is better as a passer in week one, maybe there's some wrinkles to this new offense for the Jets that maybe the Steelers are not prepared for, then yeah, he could still do well. I just don't see a reason to force it this weekend, Ian. So it's look, really, really low total, and already talked about the the passing game woes we've seen from Justin Fields over the years.
Another guy we just don't really want to force it with is going to be Chargers QB1, Justin Herbert, Dwain's QB22, Freedman's QB15, mine QB17. And literally just want to throw them out here, guys, because I know a lot of sites had him much closer to that QB12 line overall. Not us, at least in week one. Again, against a tough Chiefs defense. Obviously, Spagnuolo deserves all the credit in the world for more times than not his game plans that he is able to do. And we are expecting more of a run-first approach with Aaron Hampton and now also a healthy Najee Harris out there. So not feeling great about Justin Herbert or Justin Fields this week. That said, it is just week one, so wouldn't write them off completely for the rest of the season just yet. Dwain is going to take us to your sicko start, and my God, are you getting sick here? Talk about a quarterback who many believe to be one of the worst in the league, but maybe, just maybe, he can be good in fantasy land in week one.
This is where fantasy football and real football are different, okay? Like this sort of thing happens. Like Justin Fields is actually an example of where that can work out. I just don't like the week one matchup. But yes, it is Daniel Jones of the Indianapolis Colts, guys. This is the sickest of all sickness because he's only rostered in 5% of Yahoo leagues. Okay, so he's available in all of your leagues. He's only being started 1% of the time, which is not like bad considering he's only owned 5% of the time. I guess 1%'s okay. But although it seems really sick on the surface, Ian, here's three things. First, the game environment is very nice, 24.5 team total. That's the seventh highest. And Freedman, I think you had it a little bit lower than that, but it wasn't too much. They're small favorites over the Dolphins at 1.5 points, so that's a close game. We could have a shootout. Second, he might not be an elite rusher like Justin Fields. But guys, listen to this. Over the last 3 seasons, he's averaged 36.7 rushing yards per game whenever he's played 90% of the snaps. So didn't get hurt. Now that's a possibility with Daniel Jones. Like this is a guy, he definitely gets hurt, but that's the 6th most of all active quarterbacks heading into this weekend. So he is a very sneaky threat that doesn't always, as you like to call him, Ian, Vanilla Vic. And then third, when we look at him, 205 passing yards per game, that's bad, guys. But the league average is 215 over the last 3 years, and it's not 180. 180 is what we're talking about with Justin Fields. So that's 25 more than him. And then the last thing is I think it's a really good fit for him because of all the RPOs, all the play action, all the window dressing, essentially, that Shane Steichen's going to give him. Shane Steichen ranks very highly in all those categories. And listen to this. This is when I thought the model might be broken. I thought I might need to call James McCool and we might need to throw this thing on the scrap heap. 29.3 fantasy points is the best projection, the Xfinity best projection here for Daniel Jones. That's the 9th best in the model. So I was like, I'm going to go back and check him. So here are his top 5 games over the last 3 years. 36.2, 30.7, 28.9, 27.8, 24.6. He's cleared 22 points in 23% of the contest. Our model's basically set up to find that 15 to 20% range of what your ceiling looks like based on your archetype. It found it. He really does have a good ceiling. His median projection, not quite as good, but it's still solid as well, man. Daniel Jones is my QB 18. I've got him over Fields. I've got him over Tua. I've got him over Stroud this weekend.
One of the most troubling stats I've seen this entire offseason is courtesy of Fantasy Point CEO Scott Barrett. He would call it a very dank stat. I would have to agree. Daniel Jones, guys, has exactly as many career games with 90-plus rushing yards as Mike Vick and Cam Newton. Good luck trying to sleep tonight. Dolphins secondary is led by something named Storm Duck. They do have a good pass rush, but yeah, if there is going to be a spot where maybe Daniel Jones could pop, it would be this one. That said, Freeman, you have a wet blanket for everyone. You somehow are not high on Sam Darnold versus 49ers this week. Oh my gosh, chill out, Freeman. Don't go too crazy here.
Breaking news.
Yeah, I feel the need to like kick a dead horse and be like, hey, he's still Sam Darnold. Like, forget what you saw last year when he averaged 250 yards passing. That is not what we should expect this year. And it starts going against a revamped 49ers defense in the hashtag revenge game against Sam Darnold. But I'm just going to say, what is good about this Seahawks offense? Like, I don't have any faith in Sam Darnold. I don't have faith in Clint Kubiak. We can pretend as if this offensive line has been rebuilt, but what did they do? They drafted a small school left guard in the first round as if they're Bill Belichick, right? Like that's not going to revamp this offensive line. And this defense that they're going against, it's got a lot of new players. It's got some players returning from injury, and it has Robert Saleh there. This line, the prop line for Sam Darnold in the market is 200.5 yards passing. And even that, like, I know it sounds crazy, but like that could be like the best case scenario for Sam Darnold. Like it could be, oh, hey, we forgot that this guy's actually Sam Darnold. So people are acting like he's a legit starter. Jalen Milroe at halftime could end up coming out of here and being the starting quarterback in the second half. Like, I'm just saying, Sam Darnold, bad. 49ers defense, good. We remember that this week.
I do appreciate you bringing up the 49ers DST because I have been beating that dead horse. And again, I cannot stress enough, guys. Yeah, if you have the Vikings, the Texans, the Broncos, one of these just truly elite defenses, and you don't want to worry about schedules, I totally get that. But if not, 49ers, in my opinion, best schedule the rest of the way for your DST needs. Now time for my Hartitz heater, and we're doing it through our friends with Cloaked. Dwain and Freedman get 4 clues here to describe the quarterback who I think will rip off a QB1 finish with over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. First clue, fellas, this quarterback leads an offense and planned to score a respectable, I guess you could say that, 21 points this week.
Bryce Young?
Nothing.
Wrong. The matchup features the league's 6th worst rating defense and fantasy points per game allowed in the position.
Well, you're not going Geno Smith. Caleb Williams.
This quarterback leads the NFL in passing yards per game over the past 2 seasons if you remove his part-time appearances.
Joe Flacco.
Yeah, there we go. Freedman mentioned it before, man. Really is crazy, again, how successful Flacco has been in his limited action. 280-plus passing yards per game. And again, I just want to get in the habit of starting guys against the Bengals, okay? That's why we highlighted Jerry Jeudy earlier, and that's why I do have Joe Flacco as my QB 18 on the week. It feels absolutely wild. Dwain's got him as QB 28. Freedman's got him as QB 26. Like Freedman was talking about with Sam Darnold, I do think there is a very high risk where Flacco does start to play like the bad version of Flacco. We see Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders sooner rather than later. Not this week, though. Not against the Bengals. The Battle of Ohio. Joe Flacco knows how important this is. Give me 300-plus and 3 tuds for Mr. Elite. So appreciate you guys guessing, and appreciate Cloaked, who is actually your all-in-one solution for privacy, safety, and security, protecting your identity, blocking spam, and keeping you safe from digital threats before they reach you. We love data over here. In fact, Dwain has a weird infatuation with it. But we don't like our data being exposed to data brokers from around the web, and accordingly, Cloaked has you covered. Cloaked will scan for your info, names, address, phone numbers, all that jazz, and erase them from more than 140 data brokers online, cutting your spam, scams, and risk of identity theft at the root. You can get started today with Cloaked's free risk scan at cloaked.com/fantasy, courtesy of Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life, to see where your personal information is exposed. And here's the important part. Sign up with code FANTASY for 20% off. That's code FANTASY for 20% off. And again, that is at cloaked.com. Tight ends, fellas. Now I'd like to think that most of you already have them set up. But hey, in case you're wondering what our week 1 ranks look like, here they are in the top 12. Bowers, Kittle, McBride, 1, 2, 3. Mark Andrews, David Njoku, and Travis Kelce filling out the high-end tight end ones. We also got TJ Hawkinson, Sam Laporta, Tucker Kraft, Tyler Warren, Evan Ingram, and Dallas Goedert cracking the top 12. So Colson Loveland notably did not make the cut. More on him in just a few minutes. But guys, want to focus on that tight end 4 there. Mr. Mark Andrews, Dwain, we both have him tight end 4. Freeman's being a little bit of a coward. I would say tight end 7, but hey, looking like no Isaiah Likely, which should mean no problem for Mr. Mark Andrews. As bad as last season ended, as bad as it began also, the guy scored 11 touchdowns in between there. Anytime Isaiah Likely's out, you should start Mark Andrews. And the inverse is true as well. So guess what? Likely's out. We are loving us some Mark Andrews.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've got a good team total, 24.5 points here against the Bills. We talked about that being a potential shootout. Mark Andrews, I think is probably the best weapon on the Ravens when he's right. Last year, early in the season, it was tough because he was coming off of the tightrope surgery that we've seen slow a lot of players down. He also had that car accident, in training camp in August. So there were several weeks there where he just wasn't right. Once you got to week 6 through the playoffs, though, Ian, 13.1 fantasy points per game with a 22% targets per route run. He had a 79 utilization score, guys, which would make him a mid-range tight end 1. And that was all with Isaiah Likely. That's only playing 70% of the passing plays. So this guy's going to be more like 85% of the passing plays this weekend. The other nice thing with him, this is a guy that can not only earn targets, Ian, he can do it down the field. And you mentioned that ability for him to score those touchdowns. If you think of Jimmy Graham, Rob Gronkowski, some of the guys that have absolutely broke fantasy football over the last 15, 20 years at the tight end position, they look like Mark Andrews. Oh, guys, by the way, Mark Andrews is also someone who broke fantasy football as recently as 2021 when he averaged 17.5 fantasy points per game. He's perfect fit for the scheme. The defense is totally worried about the run, and he gets in that seam behind the linebacker, and it just leads to huge chunk plays. Mark Andrews, tight end 4.
Tight end 7, Freeman. I'm offended. What's wrong with you?
I will admit that I might be a little too low. But what I'll say is that I have a lot of bullishness on David Njoku. I think Travis Kelce has a really good week. And then Sam Laporta, I like the game environment where he's in what I think is going to be a shootout between the Lions and the Packers. So it's nothing really against Andrews. It's just I like those guys a little bit more, and I have them grouped all together in a tier.
Dwain, a couple other tight ends that, again, maybe aren't as obvious as starts to Mark Andrews that you like this week.
Yeah, Tyler Warren. You guys have been listening to me and Ian all summer, listening to the drafts. It's like Tyler Warren, 24.5 point team total. I mean, if I'm going to take, Daniel Jones as my sicko call, how can I not like Tyler Warren this weekend? So, again, a perfect fit in Shane Steichen's offense. I think he's going to get the most design looks in the offense as far as the passing game goes. So, in on him. Dallas Goedert as well, Ian. I mean, 25. Well, I guess I can't technically mention this because that game will already be over, guys. So I'll go with Chigo Okonkwo for the Tennessee Titans. Not an ideal. We've already talked about 2 guys we don't like from this game, and Tony Pollard. We also talked about the fact that we didn't like Calvin Ridley. Who's going to be the guy, though, underneath the coverage when they're taking away Calvin Ridley and the game's a blowout? It's Chigo Okonkwo. So I could see in a PPR setup, Okonkwo actually still getting to a top 12, finish just because he gets so many targets in a trailing game script. In this one, he's been playing most of the snaps this preseason.
Guys, Tyler Warren, 50-plus yards, plus 198 if you guys are trying to make some money. I will be trying to make some money with that, probably losing it because I'm not a great gambler, but you can imagine if it works out. Tight end we do have some questions about, though. Colston Loveland, someone who, again, high expectations for the rest of the season, maybe not in week 1, though. Freeman, you are, not very high on Colston Loveland this week. Explain yourself.
I mean, he's a rookie who at this point is probably the number 2 tight end in his offense. And I still don't think they're going to be running all that many 2 tight end sets. Some good wide receivers there in Chicago too. And he's a young player. It's just like you put it all together and it's just, why would I play him?
Dwain, is a situation where I think the preseason week, like not week 1, but like the starting usage was promising for Loveland. That said, we still do have some questions early on in the year.
Yeah, I mean, he got to 70%. If he does that, that'll be great. But again, I've talked about preseason utilization, which things are typically better than others. And one of the really tricky spots can be tight ends because of the way that teams are typically only playing their starters 2 to 3 series, and they could just want to see them block. They could just want to see them in pass routes. There's very particular things teams might be doing in these preseason games, and they're just wanting to see some live reps. And they're doing a lot of that, though, in these practice and these scrimmages against other teams now. So it can be difficult. So when I look at Loveland, I'm like Freedman. I love him the rest of the season, but I just don't see a reason to force him in there this weekend. There's plenty of other names that we can deal with. Hey, maybe he blows up in week 1, and that's great. If you're forced to think, oh, I got to drop Colston Loveland to go start a name like, a Hunter Henry or something. No, don't do that. Just start Loveland and live with it. But if it's a situation where you've got somebody else you can easily drop and get Loveland to your bench, I would.
That said, Dwain, this week, if you're feeling like a sicko, maybe you should be starting Hunter Henry.
Yeah, Hunter Henry is my sicko. I feel like it's him and Zach Ertz were like used so many times last year. I'm going to try to mix it up. He technically breaks my rule of 50%, but he's 59% rostered in Yahoo. But the reason I allowed myself to do it is he's only in the lineup 8% of the time. Okay, so I think actually the Daniel Jones 1% lineup versus 5% own is stronger than what we have from Hunter Henry here as far as the way fantasy managers are feeling about him. And here's the way I look at this one. Stephon Diggs, 31 years old, coming off that late October ACL tear. We don't know for sure what he's going to look like in game one. Kyle Williams hasn't earned a starting role yet. He's really just now back healthy at practice. Demario Douglas, solid slot option. Wouldn't be surprised like if he led the team in targets this weekend. Travion Henderson, we know he's going to be active in the passing game, but we talked about him earlier. We don't know for sure what his role is going to be. So when I look at this, they've got a respectable team total, 23.25, 3-point underdogs against the Raiders, or sorry, 3-point. Are they 3-point underdogs? I may have wrote that wrong, Freedman. They might be 3-point favorites, but yeah, they're favored over the Raiders. But when you look at Henry, the other big thing is the end zone targets. 24%. He led the team last year. So I like him to score a touchdown this weekend. And you know what happens, Ian, when you score a touchdown as a tight end? You're a top 12 tight end for that week, usually. That's the way it works out.
Sometimes, though, Freeman, you can score a touchdown and you can catch a bunch of passes because you're playing football with Joe Flacco out here. Talk about another warm blanket call, Freeman, with Mr. David Njoku.
Yeah, I mean, your guy you talked about earlier, Joe Flacco, I mean, just absolutely throwing the ball around the yard is what he's done the past 2 years. And David Njoku, he was a strong recipient of what Joe Flacco was doing in that abbreviated stint, the 2023 stint that he had with the Browns, where he was the comeback player of the year. In the 6 games that they played together, Njoku had 56 targets and a position best 95 utilization score. I mean, I think it's not going to just like, hey, extrapolate that across the 17 games this year. But I think as long as Joe Flacco is out there and as long as there's really no strong number 2 wide receiver behind Jerry Jeudy, we see Njoku have a shot each week of getting around 10 targets. Not like you lock that in stone, but he's got that upside each week. And then I like the matchup against the Bengals, who last year, number 1 and largest fantasy boost allowed to tight ends.
The hardest heater. I will be going with a man we have not talked about yet, but maybe should have. Tucker Kraft, guys. I think he's absolutely going to eat against the Lions. Again, who are the 2 best yak players in this Green Bay offense? Jaden Reed, well, he's trying to play through a broken foot. So why not free someone who could be this generation's George Kittle? It's high praise. I know. Not trying to take anything away from Kittle. He is an absolute beast. But man, based on what Tucker Kraft has done with his opportunities over these first couple of years, guys, the yards per target are crazy and the yak numbers are just, again, out of this world. Also wouldn't sleep on the potential for Tucker Kraft, or maybe it's going to be Tyler Warren or Mark Andrews. One of these tight ends, one of these years, guys, is actually going to start getting the tush-push opportunities from the goal line, and they're going to break fantasy football, okay? We saw what Taysom Hill did. That was more Wildcat stuff and everything, a little bit unique there, but Packers are already using Tucker Kraft in this role a little bit down the stretch of last season. I do think given some of Jordan Love's injuries, why not give the ball to your freaking beast tight end when you need to get 1 yard? So Tucker Kraft, I'm assuming he mostly gets there receiving, but keep an eye out for this tush-push, artist maybe getting something going, because it would be awfully ironic if Green Bay, who wanted to ban from the Eagles, goes ahead and takes a page out of their playbook and starts featuring Tucker Kraft with that. So, guys, this has wrapped up our rankings, but we are not done here because now we want to get to some of your start-sit questions. It is time for our start-sit hour presented by Xfinity. Start sit hour sounded really good. For the record, we're probably going to go about 10 or 15 minutes. But thank you for everyone that has already sent in plenty of questions. And accordingly, we want to get right to these. So continue to send them in. First up from Troy Schneider. Thanks for hanging out, Troy. He has Travis Hunter, Jameson Williams, and Emeka Egbuka. PPR start 1. That's a tough one. Dwain, I feel like you're leaning Egbuka.
Yeah, I'd go Egbuka,
Freedman, same page.
Jamo, then Travis.
Same.
Yeah. Same. I'm with you. 3 for 3, start Emeka Egbuka. And if, hey, this is the good thing about asking start-sit questions. If we're right, then you guys are welcome. We're here to serve. If we're wrong, maybe you should have trusted yourself. And what are we doing here? So next up from Kyle Siebert, start 2, guys. Khalil Shakur, Keon Coleman, Jacoby Myers, and Ollie Gordon. He has Josh Allen. I know Keon had the groin injury on Wednesday. It sounds like he was out there moving around okay. So assuming Keon's okay, again, Shakur, Coleman, Myers, Ollie Gordon, who you going with, Dwayne?
I got Meyer in for sure. Shakir, like I would monitor, but I would say he would be next. I don't know that I would want to play both Coleman and Shakir. I'm probably placing a bet on one of those two. But I think Jacoby Meyer, man, I'm not messing with Ollie Gordon in week one unless we hear that, really Achane continues to be limited. Then I would change that, and Ollie Gordon obviously would move in. But I'm going Meyer and Khalil Shakir.
Same page, Freedman?
Yeah, same. I really like the matchup that Meyer has this week. And then Shakir, I still think he's, like the number one wide receiver for the MVP.
Christian Gonzalez could be out for that Patriots defense. Even better matchup than for Jacoby Myers. From Break Fam, are we starting Pearsall with Jauan Jennings back? I believe we also kind of have him around that wide receiver 30 spot. But Dwain, it doesn't help.
Yep. I'm at wide receiver 28. I mean, look, he's still going to get, here's the thing with the 49ers offense. Kyle Shanahan is one of these coordinators that even if like you're an 18% target share guy, he'll turn it into 23. Like he just does it, guys. I mean, he's done it over and over and over. Jauan Jennings is the latest example last year. That's not to say these players aren't good, but yes, I'm starting Ricky Pearsall this weekend, even with Jauan Jennings back. And look, man, you weren't drafting Ricky Pearsall just because you were hoping Jauan Jennings was going to leave. Like, I know he got steamed up up the boards a little bit, but he played good at the end of last season. So you threw your dart. I'm definitely playing him.
I'm with Dwain. He's my wide receiver 29. Freedman, you have this much tighter. Pearsall, wide receiver 39. Jennings, wide receiver 43.
Yeah, I would still go with Pearsall, although I will say the matchup I think is a little bit tougher than we might be giving it credit for, and especially because we don't really know where Pearsall is going to line up. But I mean, regardless of where he lines up, I think he's going to have a tough matchup if he's going against Reek Woolen or Devin Witherspoon. I think that is tough there. So I don't think it's a situation where I'm outright fading Ricky Pearsall, but I see him more as like a wide receiver 3 than a wide receiver 2.
Jaden wants to know if he should drop Darnell Mooney for Deontay Thornton. Hard no, guys. We're Team Mooney.
Yeah, I'm Team Mooney. Like, if for some reason like your team is loaded with like the receivers you like up top, and you're looking for a name that could like just you hope breaks out, like I could see it in that scenario. But yeah, I'm Team Mooney.
Yes. Athletic profile for Thornton.
He has made one guy retire and one guy request a trade. So, I mean, Thornton has that going for him.
Hey, shout out Amari Cooper, though. 7 years, 1,000+ yards. What a route runner. I know people had higher expectations, but Amari Cooper, heck of an NFL career, my man. From Cobra, redshirt year question, Brashard Smith or Thornton? Not sure if that's like a dynasty sort of thing. I would say if it is a bench stash, it just kind of depends on what your roster is looking like, right, Freedman? Again, if we're in a situation where go ahead, Dwayne.
No, I'm sorry. No, you're going to Freedman first. Freedman, go.
Yeah, just saying, so Freedman, again, if I drafted one running back and I need to have as many bullets in the chamber for my running back room, I'm probably keeping Smith, but vice versa, then okay, take the wide receiver.
I'd probably go with the wide receiver. I mean, the guy's starting this year right away. We're going to have some data on what he looks like, whereas Brashard Smith, he could sit on the bench for a year and then get cut next year.
Yeah, I think Thornton winning the starting job. Yeah, no, he can be, but for dynasty, or if this is like a player that you're thinking of, just as a keeper next year, I think to Freeman's point, we're going to get the data. You're more likely end up going to have to cut Brashard Smith and not know what you have. You're going to know pretty quickly with Thornton what you have early in the year.
Fair points. And yes, in Dynasty, usual rule of thumb is to prioritize the wide receiver over the running back. So Dynasty, definitely Thornton. If it's more of a bench stash, I still lean Smith depending on the roster, but 2-for-1 team Thornton. From Apex Fuzzy, Tyron Tracy or Travis Hunter in the flex full PPR. I'm Team Tracy this week, guys. Again, that was my hardest heater. Are you guys on the same page?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. From Russell Gall, Ridley or Sutton both have bad shadows. Help. Yeah, man, we're here to help. So appreciate you, Russell. I would be leaning Courtland Sutton, though. I don't know that L'Jarius Sneed is going to be too big of an issue for Courtland Sutton. He's one of those guys that can just kind of win jump balls against anyone to begin with. Also, again, Sneed is going to be banged up. So rest of the season, yeah, I would honestly probably be taking Ridley. That's how I was drafting it. But Dwayne, Freedman, this week, we're all in agreement with Sutton.
Yeah, I have Sutton clearly ahead of Ridley this week.
Yeah, about 10 spots higher.
From Devin Bryant, Sutton or Emeka Egbuka in full PPR?
I've got Sutton 2 spots ahead still. That one I will say, don't come back and blame me. Make your own decision. No, I mean, they're really close. But I mean, Cortland Sutton had a great year last year, man. Like, I think people were drafting him closer to his ceiling, but they were drafting him as a wide receiver 2, which is what I think he is. And he's already proven that. So I still lean Sutton slightly here.
Freeman, I'm Sutton. Are you on the same page?
I think I actually might be Igbokwe. It could be a situation where I could see and I'll just say, I don't know exactly how I have them ranked, but I think I have them pretty close. I like the situation with Igbokwe in that he could have a game where they just need to throw the ball, whereas the Broncos could run the ball a lot and give Sutton maybe like 4 targets. That's within the range of outcomes, but I think Igbokwe gets targeted a lot.
Freeman, let's find out how high you really are on Igbokwe, because per John M. Sloat, he has picked between Tedero McMillan, Emeka Igbokwe, and Xavier Worthy. 2 of them in full PPR.
Oh, well, I mean, you got to go Xavier Worthy and McMillan, but I do like Igbokwe. That's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
Freeman is close on Sutton and Igbokwe, just like, actually, yeah, you're really close, just like I am. So, yeah, you got him at 20, Sutton 22 and Igbokwe 24.
T-Mac and Worthy there for the win. Also have a tight end question here from Miriam Kim. Brenton Strange or Jake Ferguson this week? Timely one. I would say Jake Ferguson, but if by the time this comes out, Jake has had a bad game, then I probably would go Brenton Strange. What say you, Dwain?
I think that's fantastic advice from you. I don't think I could give anything better than that remark. I do have Brenton Strange below Ferguson this week. I will say this. Like, the Eagles linebackers, like, they're very good at stopping the run. We don't know for sure how. I mean, Bond was good in coverage last year, but was really good as a pass rusher, good as a run stopper. If I had to choose, I think there's a chance, right? Ferguson gets more work on the inside because the corners are so good now for the Eagles. So maybe that forces a little more work his way. So I'm with you. I'll lean Ferguson, but if he plays bad tonight, well, doesn't matter. Should have went with Brenton Strange.
I'm going to rip off a few of these and then throw them back to you. Losman063, should I start George Pickens? A little bit lower from Freeman and Dwain in the wide receiver 3 ranks. If you do have a closer one with someone like Emeka Igbokwe, I do think this would be a spot where you could actually sit George Pickens, but it's also the first game of the year. You want something to root for, right? From Matt, Goff or Fields this week, we are slightly leaning Jared Goff. Again, potential shootout on Sunday, just not a good spot for Fields. Devontae Adams or Jacoby Myers revenge game. I love when people are referencing the revenge games. That said, we are going with Devontae Adams there. From Kevin, Eckler or Shaheed in half PPR. Dwain, where do you lean there?
Man, I gotta look this one up. Eckler, I've got as my. Oh man, I've got him slightly.
Let me jump in on. Let me jump in on this one.
I've got Shaheed ahead.
Yeah,
I've got Shaheed ahead of Eckler.
Yeah, I think Eckler is the floor play and Shaheed is the ceiling play. I think otherwise they're like fairly comparable in kind of what you might project, but it would depend on the matchup that you're in. But if you just kind of want the safety of for sure getting some points, I would go with Eckler. If you're looking more for a ceiling because you're an underdog, I would go with Shaheed.
Greg's wondering DJ Moore or Jalen Waddle. Based on what Freeman was selling us, guys, I do think DJ Moore makes some sense there this week, but it is close. We wouldn't exactly blame you for going with Waddle. From Matt, Golden or Igbokwe, we are Team Igbokwe this week. Again, just all the volume coming his way. Jonathan wants to know, though, Dwayne, Jameson Williams or Isaiah Pacheco in full PPR. I lean Jameson, but it's close.
Yeah, I've got Pacheco 55. And then I've got JMO 46. So 10 spots apart. And I vote Waddle on the last one. I would start Waddle over DJ Moore. But yeah, give me JMO over Pacheco.
Fair enough. JMO over Pacheco for you too, Freeman?
I think some of it, again, just comes down to what you're looking for. If you want that floor, I think you go with the running back. If you want the ceiling, you go with Jameson Williams. I mean, Jameson Williams, a wide range of outcomes, right? He could have like 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, or he could have like 50 yards, right? Like, it just kind of depends on what you want.
That could be Pacheco too in like one, like, because, dude, my only concern with Pacheco is we don't know for sure what the split looks like. So I feel like there's a little more risk with Pacheco than a normal week. Like after week 1, we might feel fine about it. Like, all right, 65% is going to Pacheco, but I'm just like slightly torn on like what this rotation is going to look like.
K-Mac, Ibuka, or Pearsall? We are going Ibuka. John wants to know 2 flex PPR, Worthy, T-Mac, Ibuka, or JMO. It would be T-Mac and Worthy. I think you have them in the right order. Last one, guys. PPR flex, Ricky Pearsall or Isaiah Pacheco. Dwain, who you got?
I have got Pacheco slightly higher on this one. It's by 1 spot. Oh my gosh. I was looking for Pearsall by 1 spot. I have Pacheco 55. I have Pearsall 56. So do you have a coin that you trust flipping that's like it's been your go-to? I would use it right now.
Freedman, Pacheco. I think that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I'd go Pacheco.
And with that, guys, going to wrap up our Start Sit presented by Xfinity. Again, they have their 5-year price guarantee. One consistent internet price for the next 5 years guaranteed. Good luck this week. Freeman and I will be back tomorrow breaking down some injuries. And then check out Dwain and myself live Sunday night after Sunday Night Football. Talk about a great day to be great then. So for Freeman, for producer Matt, for producer Kelsey, for Dwain, I'm Ian. Thanks again for tuning in. Until next time, take care, everybody.